And now for bleeding the brakes. As I was saying before, you don't need any kind of fancy tools. You don't need an expensive mechanic. You don't need any of that. All you need is a simple Powerade bottle and a plastic tube. Plastic tube you can pick up from your local Lowe's or Home Depot. Powerade, just go get a drink from the store. So what you want to do is, at the top here, you want to drill yourself a hole for your plastic tube to go through. You want the plastic tube to go all the way down to the bottom. And then you want to drill a second smaller hole that's an air vent hole. So that way when you get your flow of brake fluid going, you have the air release, that way the fluid flows. The other part to that is you want to have a small amount of brake fluid in here already. This brake fluid, that'll help with the suction of the brake fluid flowing through the tube. You can use new brake fluid for it, or you can do what I did since I replaced the calipers. I emptied out the old brake fluid from the old calipers into here. That's why it's that wonderful color right there. So, I'm going to explain it and then we're going to see it. First thing you're going to have is you're going to go to the underneath part and you're going to take your 10mm wrench. You're going to put that onto the bleeder bolt. You want to use the closed end, not the crescent side. Crescent side could slip. Closed end will keep that from happening. Put it on your bleeder bolt, and then you're going to attach your hose right on the top of the bleeder bolt. Pop it open just enough for the fluid to start flowing. Then you're going to have the person helping you go over and start pumping the brake pedals. When that happens, you're going to see bubbles streaming through. You want to keep pumping those the brake pedal until the bubbles stop. Once the bubble stops, that gets rid of all of the airflow through there. Once you see the bubble stop, that's when you'll close back up that bleeder bolt, pop your tube off, and tighten it up. So, that's a brief explanation of it. Now we're actually going to go and do it so that way you can see it in action. Now, as we start with bleeding our brake lines, for your 7.3 diesel as well as your Ford Power Strokes, there is a particular order or sequence that you need to bleed them in. You want to start off with the passenger rear. Next, you're going to do the driver's side rear. Third, come back around to the front. You will do the passenger front. And last, the driver's side front. That's your correct order or sequence that you need to bleed them in. That'll be down in the description below. Okay, under the hood, here is your master cylinder. While you're doing this process, you have your cap unfastened. Some people say to take the cap off while you're doing it. I only do that when I replace the caliper, or I'm sorry, when I replace the brake pads, and then I got to push the calipers back in. You have the cap off so that way while the calipers or pistons are being pushed back in, the air comes back out through here. I don't like having the cap off when I bleed the brake lines because I don't want to be taking air in during that, so just unseal and leave it set on there. Okay, rear passenger, we're going to go ahead and put our crescent wrench on with the close end first, and then we're going to bring a plastic tube on here and just put it right over the top of the bleeder bolt, just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and pop it open. Okay. You can see you've got some flow started here. Alright, go ahead and start pumping the brakes. There we go. Slowly. See that big old air bubble coming out?
Oh my god. That's what's in the brakes?
Pump it again. Keep going. Okay, you can see right there. Bubbles have stopped. Okay, go ahead and stop.
Okay.
I'm showing here. Wait, is that all the black liquid in there? Brake fluid.
Will that take the liquid out?
Yes.
Why do you want to take the liquid out?
Okay. Alright, so you've got it tightened up. Clean up any excess fluid. Go ahead and pop your hose off. You'll just hold it up so that way any excess fluid that's in here will drain in. And you can see got quite a bit of fluid out of there to get all the air out. So now make sure that you have all your excess drippage cleaned up so that way you don't get that burning smell when you start driving it again. Then we'll tighten it up. Make sure it's got a nice seal on it. There. And then go ahead and replace the bleeder cap. And passenger rear is finished. Now before we move on to the next one, after each brake that you drain or you flush, you go and check the master cylinder to make sure that you're full on fluid, because what you don't want is you don't want the fluid reservoir to go low in the master cylinder. Then you start pumping more air in, then you have to restart the whole process. So that's the next thing we're going to do right now, is check the brake fluid level in the master cylinder. So now we're going to check our levels. As you can see, bleeding it took down quite a bit of the fluid level. Where maximum fills right there, you can see the fluid levels just about down here, so that took out quite a bit. So we're just going to fill it back up again with .3 brake fluid. Alright, now we're on the rear passenger side. You can see I emptied out the bottle some so that way we don't run into any overflowing issues. So crescent wrench on here, and then go ahead and hook up our tube, and we're going to open it. Alright, and then you're going to have your person on the brake pedal. Go ahead and start pumping the brakes. Alright, go ahead. Nice and slow. You can see this side is going to do a little easier because we blew out most of the air on the other side. And we'll keep doing this, watching for the bubbles. Alright, there we go. See the bubbles stopped. Alright, you guys stop pumping. Then we're going to tighten up. just enough to make sure nothing's coming out. Then pop that loose, hold it up to drain the rest out, and then finish tightening. There we go. Wipe off the excess. And then you want to just take a quick inspection, look at it after you're done tightening, just to make sure that you don't have any leak or drippage going on. Once it's wiped away, you can also take a look on here, make sure you don't have any drippage going on in your connector there. And then put your bleeder cap on. Alright, and like I said, you want to go back to the master cylinder, check your fluid level and make sure that it's topped off. And then we'll move on to next, which will be the front passenger side. Alright, so with your wheels still on, it's possible to still crawl under and bleed them without having to take the wheels off. Just a little more cramped. However, with these Excursions and Power Strokes, you got a lot of space to work with underneath. So you can see here's your bleeder cap right here, so you just need to pull your bleeder cap off. Simple as that. And put our crescent on. Then we'll put our cap on, or say our hose on. Before we start loosening it. Okay, now we can loosen it. There we go. It's going the wrong way first. Alright, okay, go ahead and start pumping. Alright, go ahead and stop. You can see right there, that one had almost no air in it. Okay, so we'll tighten it up a bit. Get a rag here before popping that off. Alright, tighten it up. And put our bleeder cap back on. There we go. Yeah. As you see, doing it in the sequence of order right there, the air becomes less and less. So I would imagine when we do the driver's side, there's going to be hardly any coming out. We'll see. Now, with barely any coming out, we don't need to check our fluid level on our master cylinder. You can if you like. However, since, like I said, barely anything came out, I'm not going to need to check it. So we'll see you over on the front driver's side. Front side, last one in sequence here. Taking care not to rip it or break it. Stick a crescent on there. Put our hose on. Now we'll loosen it. Okay, go ahead and start pumping. Alright, stop. You can see there, just a few little bubbles. Go ahead and tighten it back up. Pop it line off. Tighten it up, make sure we don't get any leakage going on. Clean it off, put your bleeder cap back on. Alright, so now the last thing we're going to do, we'll check the master cylinder to make sure that we're full on brake fluid. Then we'll be good to go. Okay, now we'll come back and check to make sure that our fluid level is filled on the master cylinder. So now we can go ahead, put the cap back on, click it into place. If you're below the max line, make sure you fill it up to your max line. Now the last thing we have to do, we'll come pump the brake pedal. You should have resistance. As you can see, when I push on it, it does not go all the way to the back. Let's get a different angle for you here. You can see the amount of space there. Just as if you're pushing on the brakes normally. That means all of the air is out, all the calipers, the O-rings on the calipers are where they should be in place. No air in the brake line system. When you push on that brake, it should give maximum resistance and should not go all the way back. If it still keeps going all the way back, you either have more air in the line or you have a whole different set of issues going on with a leak somewhere. So, with that, hope that helped.